You were listening to the Battle Ready podcast. My name is Erwin McManus. I'm here with my dad, Erwin Raphael McManus. It's so good to have you.
It's good to be back. I did not expect to be in LA. I was in Chicago yesterday.
Were you supposed to get back today?
No, I was supposed to head out to Miami.
Ah, okay.
And that got redirected. So I went down to Orange County, met some friends for a birthday party, and now I'm here doing Battle Ready.
Whose birthday was it?
Two of my friends, Ed Milet and Edwin Ariave.
Oh, it's Edwin's birthday?
Yeah.
Was it today?
Last week.
Oh,
But we
okay.
celebrated them both on the same day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's super fun.
And I kind of met one of my radio heroes. His name is Jim Rome. He was a sports caster. I listened to him every single day.
What happened to Jim Rome? Because he was kind of the Stephen A. Smith of like the mid-2000s.
He was Stephen A. Smith before there was a Stephen A. Smith. And he had a moment where he called a pro football player from the LA Rams, Jim Everett. He called him Chris Everett because he said he was soft. He was faking going down instead of being tackled. And he ended up having him on his show. I think it's called Jim Rome is Burning. Rome is Burning. And he called Jim Everett Chris to his face twice. And he said, if you call me Chris again, and he said, Chris. And Jim went crazy in the booth, started tearing it up.
Went WWE on his TV show.
Went pretty violently aggressive. And Jim's career was basically over for a season.
Okay. Yeah. So anyways,
so it was fun meeting him. It was great. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good. I don't like Stephen A. Smith anymore. He just drives me crazy. Bothers me.
You know, I thought he was better with Max
Kellerman. I miss Max Kellerman.
I think sometimes.
Wait, hold on. I don't want to go into sports.
No, but it's about chemistry. Sometimes we underestimate that our greatness is the result of chemistry we have with another person, just like Battle Ready, the chemistry I have with you.
So what you're saying is that if you pull Stephen A. Smith and you have me booted off the show and I disappear one day, it won't be the same?
I'm saying one of us is Max.
I think I'm Max.
Oh, but I love Max Kellerman.
It doesn't matter who you like more. I think it's who you are more. It doesn't matter. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
So yesterday we did, you got back from Chicago, but we did the most recent Q&A session as a part of the Art of Communication 10-week series.
Mm-hmm.
So we launched this Art of Communication masterclass course.
Yes.
And then it went bananas. It was so fun. People around the world got involved in this thing, which is so exciting.
And you can still sign up, by the way.
You can not sign up. You can still buy it.
That's right.
You can go to theartofcommunication.org, right?
Yep.
The Art of Communication.
Yes.
The Art of This is why I need it. You can go to the
now
Art
you're
of
sounding like President Biden.
Now
Oh, Pastor Erwin.
Unnecessary.
That's
Flagrant one. Flagrant one.
Sorry.
That was a technical foul.
I don't know where that came from.
Are you okay? Who hurt you today? You're turning red. It's hot in here.
All right. Let's go. Let's move on.
Theartofcommunication.org. Okay, here's the thing. This is not a sales pitch. This is just the truth. We released 6 plus hours of communication course, masterclass, where you're looking right into the camera, looking right at the person, talking through your theory of communication and how to communicate at a masterclass level.
Yeah.
This is 40 plus years of your experience condensed down into 6 plus hours.
Yeah, and unwrapping principles of communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then on top of it, because you're a generous guy, you kind of sneak attacked everyone and you were like, I'm actually going to do 10 plus hours in Q&A content.
Live 1 hour sessions with everyone who purchased the Art of Communication.
So everyone who purchases Art of Communication right now,
yes,
they'll get to jump in on week 4 of the Art of Communication.
Right. So they've missed
Q&A.
3 live sessions.
But you can get all that content.
That's right. You can pick all that up and then dive into the next 7 or 6 live ones.
And
that are still remaining.
Essentially, it's a live Zoom.
Yeah.
And then they get to ask questions to you in a pretty intimate setting.
Yes, it's really wonderful.
It's really wonderful. I think the people who have been a part of it have really found tons of value in it. So initially it was 6 plus hours. Now it's 10 plus hours. No, not 16 plus hours, which is pretty amazing. So if you can, the price might be however you feel about it, but we just literally almost 10x'd the value. Not literally.
Yeah, and I want to make sure
10
we
times,
under-promised and over-delivered. And so we did not use the 10 live sessions as a selling point.
No.
It was really as a way of saying, thank you for investing in yourself, for diving into this content. And I want to make sure that the material that you're going through really gets into you and that you can optimize these skills and these principles in your own life.
You have a community to process with, because it gets you access to a private Facebook group.
Yes.
Which essentially everyone who has purchased the Art of Communication gets access to. People are posting their highlights. People are posting failure moments. People are posting questions. People are answering them. It's actually really, really fun. I thought Facebook groups were just for moms. They're not. It's like a great community. I absolutely love it. So thank you for building it. If you are on this right now and you're like, I didn't know Erwin did a communication masterclass, or I want to give to Bad Already, don't. Well, do, but don't right now. Go and buy The Art of Communication at theartofcommunication.org. Do it now. We love you so much.
All right.
That was a good ad.
All right, there you go. Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
All right. Well, I think we should.
Tell us where you were.
Oh, I was in Chicago. And by the way, I actually did the live Q&A from Chicago.
You did?
Yeah, over at the campus of Willow Creek in Barrington, Illinois, outside of Chicago.
A lot of controversy there.
Yeah, but a lot of good there too.
Yeah.
And they do these, what they call GLS Next events. They're Global Leadership Summit. And then they do these next events where people who join their large summit with maybe 120,000 people then are invited into these more precise leadership development sessions. And so 10,000 people will dive into this. It'll be live, by the way, May 5th. And people can go to GLS Next and sign up and get the interaction. I was there in a conversation with Ryan Holiday.
Okay.
And that event has been pre-recorded, and it'll come out May 5th. And it's free, and people just go and sign up and get it.
Okay,
so Ryan speaks for 30 minutes. I spoke for 30 minutes, and then I interview him from around 20 minutes.
Okay. So talk to me. So what'd you learn? Who is Ryan Holiday?
Well, I wasn't really familiar with Ryan before. And so I started researching him and learning. He wrote a book called Ego is the Enemy, which is incredibly popular. And he wrote a book on stillness. I think it's Stillness is the Key.
Or is it Stoicism is the Key?
No. And he actually writes and speaks about Stoicism.
Stillness is the Key.
Yeah.
The Daily Stoic.
Yeah. And so he has basically taken the teachings of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and the Stoics of that era and translated them for his generation, for his audience. And
trust me, I'm lying. Because he used to be a media director, right?
He was the marketing director for American Apparel, which I wish I could have had an hour-long conversation with him about that, but that wasn't the context of that environment.
Okay.
And because I really did want to understand, how do you take Stoicism and apply it to one of the most corrupt fashion companies in modern American history, and how do you deal with that tension, and how does that play out? But that wasn't the right environment for that conversation. So I just asked him about Stoicism, about his own relationship to it, how he applies it to his family, raising his kids. How does he apply it to his own personal sense of intention and purpose and fulfillment? And it was a great conversation. I really liked him. I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
And there's a lot of people out there using the public forum to be negative, to be destructive, to spread hate. And here's a guy trying to help people live a more principled life, to live a more fulfilled life. And so I just really commended him for giving his life to try to make the world a better place.
Talking about making the world a better place, Elon Musk buys Twitter. You knew it was coming. Elon Musk buys Twitter, $44 billion to take Twitter private. The media, social media, the people are going bananas.
Yeah,
They're going nuts.
I do think it's interesting that, it ends up becoming a conflict between the left and the right. It's not just about money.
Right.
And initially, Twitter has too high of ideals to sell to Elon Musk. And, they're looking for a white knight that will come and save them to keep it a more liberal platform. And when they realize no white knight is coming and Netflix is tanking, the future of these kinds of platforms is not bright right now unless there's new insight, new innovation, new leadership. So I do think it's interesting that money in the end had a higher value than protecting, quote, the ecosystem of Twitter.
Right.
The $44 billion did speak.
It did.
and
It
Jack
did.
Dorsey comes out and says, I don't trust anyone more than Elon Musk to take care of this environment. Where just a week before, the whole board was saying, you can come on the board, but you cannot have any influence or any voice here.
Right.
So one, what happened? Like, did you have an ethical backroom conversation going, oh, we believe in these principles, but we just hit the ceiling of how much our principles are worth?
Well, I hope, I can't imagine that their intentions were pure in this situation. 44 billion makes it very complicated, but they at least upheld their duty to the stockholders.
Yes.
They took the offer. Now they're getting bought out. They're getting paid out.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, there's been a lot of backlash. Elon is very polarizing. And then it's funny because it's like, Elon does this, then everyone's talking about Elon, and then everyone's making fun of all the people who are talking about Elon. It becomes this like, it's all the people who do Robinhood or invested in the AMC thing, and then people who like Elon Musk. And it's like they try to make fun of kind of this young male demographic in the US, but I really do think it's like, how do you get away from this conversation? It's one of the most aspirational things. He creates an electric car company. He's trying to go to space. He builds reusable rockets. He creates the Boring Company. He makes flamethrowers for the apocalypse.
Woo!
Hey, the greatest compliment I ever gotten
My man is an American hero.
was when I was called the Elon Musk of Christianity.
Were you?
I
Who?
was.
Self-proclaimed? Talk to me. Quote him.
No, that would make me Kanye.
I am a genius.
No, it was when I was speaking at a global conference somewhere,
Okay.
and I thought I did not confirm or deny.
Thank you.
Just said thank you.
But it's really interesting because, someone sent me a DM, and it's Sean King, who's kind of like the political activist.
Sean King sent you a DM.
Not Sean King.
Oh.
Someone sent me a DM. Did I explain that badly? I did.
Okay.
Someone sent me a DM of Sean King's Twitter post
Okay.
that he had posted. I think screenshotted it and posted it on Instagram as well. And it talks about how I want to actually, can I read it real quick?
Sure, of
I just
course.
got to pull it up. 1 second. Sean King does it for the numbers, just so we're clear. He does it for the numbers, not for the political activism. He's a total sellout, as am I. As am I. You can buy Battle Ready merch now. I'm just kidding. So Sean King says this: at its root, Elon Musk wanting to purchase Twitter is not about left versus right. It's about white power. The man was raised in apartheid by a white nationalist. He's upset that Twitter won't allow white nationalists to target/harass people. That's his definition of free speech. And then the caption underneath the post was, I trended worldwide today because of this tweet. It's true.
No, just because you trend worldwide doesn't make something true. It actually, the less true something is, the more likely it is to become viral. And, because you have to be acerbic, you have to be controversial, you have to be violent in your thoughts to create a lot of viral momentum. And Sean King knows that if he can keep the narrative in the central issue of white versus black, he stays at the center of the conversation. If the conversation is about something else, he becomes essentially irrelevant. And so it has to become about racism. And frankly, everything in the world isn't about racism. And anyone who's at all objective needs to realize that this is more economic. This is,
Right.
And to call Elon Musk a racist, well,
But you truly believe what element of it is purely economic? Because I do think this is a left. I think it's the opposite of Sean King's statement. I don't think it's about white power. I think it is about the left and the right. And I think the convergence of this conversation around free speech, and is free speech free?
Well, it's not. It costs $44 billion.
To break Twitter free of its leftist, liberal, socialist perspectives, where they ban presidents and people that they don't like, but they keep bots and political misinformation.
Yeah, what's interesting is that MSNBC came out with a whole clip about the danger of Elon Musk owning Twitter.
Yeah.
And everything they described is exactly what Jack Dorsey and Twitter has done.
100%. MSNBC's Ari Melber was mocked on Twitter after The Beat. Host questioned Musk's motives and warned that Twitter could now be used to censor members of a specific political party and influence elections, something that has long been a point of concern for conservatives and Republicans lawmakers with its past left-leaning management. So basically what he's saying is Twitter's going to start doing what Twitter's already been doing, but doing it for the other side.
Yeah, and I expect Elon to be much more of an economist. See, if you only protect the right, you only get half of the economic potential of Twitter.
Right.
If you only protect the left, you only get half of the economic potential. If you actually open it up and let it become a true platform for dialogue, debate, even controversy, you get 100% of the people.
Well, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. I think some of it is more economic. I think Elon's looking at it and going, oh, there's so much potential here. If we just open it up both ways, we could double our value.
Well, it's McDonald's serving Impossible Burgers, right? It's going like just because you don't eat meat doesn't mean you don't eat McDonald's. It's like we want everyone.
But everybody loves the fries.
But I think, but everyone does love the fries. They have the best fries. I do think we're in this kind of interesting crossroads, right? He buys Twitter. I hate Twitter. My friends who worked at Twitter know I hate Twitter because it became this agendaed, toxic, cesspool of both sides. Like there was just no monitoring there. And not that there needs to be censorship, but there does need to be some form of maybe duality in its conversation, or it just felt like it was singular. It was like if you weren't super left, super LGBTQ plus promoting, or super COVID vaccine forward, you got banned and you got hated.
Oh, and you got swarmed. I mean, they would just send tons of people after you. And so, I mean, I still remember the day that you told me to get off of Twitter, where I came over and deleted Twitter from my account. Yeah. Because it was so destructive to my own life experience. And it just felt like I was just in a sewer all the time. And you couldn't talk about anything meaningful. Everything was always brought back to an agenda.
Always. And even the people who argue on Twitter, it's always old clips of something you did or something else you've done or XYZ. I'm like, if you want that list, just hit me up. I got you. I'll help you out.
So I think we could all agree that Twitter has not been a healthy space.
It has not been.
It's not like
Twitter is the social media version of church.
Yeah. Church lady, judging, condemning everybody.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Church lady.
And so I'm going, wait a minute. Elon Musk didn't buy something that was pure. Elon Musk just bought something that was polluted.
He just pulled something out of the garbage disposal.
And he has a very inventive way of transforming things. So I'm going, look, he created Tesla to clean up the environment that humans were polluting. And I hope he takes Twitter and does the same thing. I hope. But he may actually add to the pollution. He may just say, okay, we can't stop the pollution. Everybody pollute.
I think here's the interesting thing, because, a huge part of the conversation is, I got a huge argument with a friend that was like, I posted something and said, Elon Musk could have spent I could have found 44 billion other things he could have spent his money on. My response was, you can't do much with $1. But you can do a lot when there are 44 billion of them. Mm-hmm. And also, what is it to you that he decides to spend 22 billion of his own? Because he paid for half of it, right?
Yeah.
Who's his partner?
A bank. Let me find out.
A bank. Yeah, no, but he's like, what is it to you? Yeah, it's less than 10% of his net worth.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Here's a good rule of thumb. If you haven't been able to make 1 million, you probably don't have the insight to how a person should spend 44 billion. And because people act as though somebody gave Elon that $44 billion or that somehow he stole it. And that's one of the things I had to address, is that creating value and creating a product that people buy that allow you to have $44 billion is not stealing.
No.
It's actually creativity. It's actually generating economy. And money always works better when it's moving. Economy is when they become static. That's when you have inflation. And that's when you have depressions.
This is the greatest thing that could happen.
He just moved $44 billion that he could just left in a bank somewhere.
Well, so here, if I could be mistaken, but Jack Dorsey's not with Twitter anymore, right? He's off running Block, which is the new version of Square.
Yeah, he stepped down.
He stepped down. So really, Twitter's run, I'm sure by a new CEO. I'm not sure who they appointed, but by a board that owns less than 1% of, I think, the net worth of Twitter, or the value of Twitter. So really, Twitter's being controlled by people who have massive agendas, but have almost no value. And if it increases almost no value if it increases in its expansion, I guess to some degree, but they're making a lot of money being paid to be on the board.
Yeah, I'm going, why do we think that board is more ethical and more trustworthy than Elon Musk?
I think Jack Dorsey coming out and putting his cosign behind Elon Musk is the greatest example of him going, the board is not as good as you think it is.
Yeah.
Them running Twitter, it'll be better for a singular person to have his ideals. And a lot of the feedback that I've been watching on like the VC podcasts I've listened to are, if you can get Elon Musk's engineers, his AI engineers, inside of Twitter, they can fix a lot of the bot situation, the trolling situation, kind of this like negative feedback funnel that they've become, and actually bring to the surface really healthy and like positive conversations. So I'm really excited to see what Elon does with Twitter.
Yeah. And one of the great, I think, to me, almost like disclosures is, if your idea is a principle and not an agenda, you don't care who accomplishes it. And so if your idea is climate change and protecting the environment, you don't care that a guy who, quote, is on the right creates Tesla. But he wasn't even invited to the White House. Tesla was not even spoken about when they're dealing with
when Biden
electric
invited
cars.
electric car companies.
When President Biden, he's focusing on Ford and GM, who are light years behind Tesla. So that tells me it's not a principle. It's actually an agenda.
100%.
And it's the same with Twitter. If the principle, if the ideal is free speech, then you shouldn't be angry that Elon Musk is taking it over. You shouldn't care whether it's a person on the left or right. You should care about whether the person advances the principle of free speech, not protecting your speech and then closing down the speech of a person who disagrees with you. And we need to acknowledge right now in our nation that free speech means you're allowed to say anything that's liberal. And whatever is questioned is anything on the right. And one of the great challenges is that the fringes always find a way to be heard. And Joe Rogan, who is super conservative, he's a fringe voice that MSNBC and CNN don't think should be heard. They feel he doesn't have a right to have an opinion. And so now you have this elitist ideology. We have the only perspective of who should be heard. Just because millions of people are following Joe Rogan doesn't mean he should be heard. So here's what's crazy. CNN couldn't get 10,000 people on CNN Plus. Joe Rogan couldn't reduce to 10,000 people. and yet CNN will still believe that they're the experts who should be giving people their perspectives on reality.
It's insane. Okay, so here's the thing. Spotify says its premium subscribers rose 15% this last year, from 180 million subscribers to 182 million. After Spotify deleted was trending on Twitter last year because of the whole Joe Rogan debate thing. That wasn't last year. That was the fall of last year, right? Which is just absolutely insane that now the people have spoken.
Yeah.
CNN, Fox News, MSNBC don't dictate what is true. They don't dictate what is real. They don't dictate what is factual. But I will say this, Fauci has established that COVID is over.
The pandemic is over.
Pandemic is over. He also said you could catch AIDS by being in the same room. So, well, he doesn't have the track record of being perfect. But we don't cancel people here, so we just want to have a conversation about what is true and what's not true.
Yeah, it's interesting that I was just reading how the CDC was upset about the judge who overruled mask mandates on airplane travels.
Yeah.
And the White House was saying they were disappointed in the judge, that they're not scientists, they should not be overriding the CDC. And then in the blink of an eye, the weekend passed, and now Fauci is saying the pandemic's over. So the judge was right.
I hope that man never pays for a thing in the rest of his life.
Who,
I hope
Fauci?
no.
I think the judge was a woman.
I hope every place that Fauci walks into makes him pay double. Double dog for me having to breathe and breathe twice through this mask. No, the judge needs free flights forever.
I think the judge was a woman.
When I say he, I mean everyone. If you can decide your pronouns, I can say he for everybody.
U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell.
Oh,
Ooh.
amazing.
And she
Thank you,
basically
Ms. L.
said the mask mandate was unconstitutional,
It exceeded its legal powers. Yes.
which has been so obvious because the government for 2 years has exceeded its power. The governor of California has exceeded his power. The mayor of Los Angeles has exceeded his power. We've become a nation that has become comfortable with elected officials exceeding their power. And if we're not careful, we're going to become a nation that becomes comfortable with becoming powerless as citizens.
It's a big statement. Okay, so on your airplane on Monday or yesterday when you flew in, did you wear a mask?
I did not, and I was confused because I got to the LAX and some people were wearing masks and some were not. Then I got to Chicago O'Hare and some people were wearing masks and some were not, but the employees were not. So I used the employees as my
Your excuse?
my code. I was trying
yeah.
to decode the room and because I've been a person. I've even when I didn't want to wear a mask, I wore a mask out of respect for other people and because I realized people were genuinely afraid. And I was, trying to be as cooperative and considerate as possible. But I'm so done wearing masks, and I was so happy that regulation has been removed, and all the science seems to point to the fact that the masks are almost irrelevant in having any kind of effect on the pandemic instigated by COVID. So.
Yeah.
I just find it odd.
So I told you so. So I told you so. Or maybe I don't want to say that I told you so, but I was right. It's not that I told you so, but maybe we talked about it for 2 years about how the fact that I'm a little frustrated because you don't go anywhere now. They don't ask anything about vaccines. They don't ask anything about masks.
And Novak Djokovic is going to be allowed to play in Wimbledon without being vaccinated.
Yeah. Yes.
And even though athletes and employees lost their jobs because they refused to be vaccinated. So I guess you have to be the best in the world and
he
hold the line.
He lost $15 million in Australia.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, in Australia, I lost so much money
because
not having him.
Yeah. So here we go, right? 2 years later, we realized a big thing that trusting the science is an interesting statement. How do you trust the science when it's been proven to be wrong?
And how you trust the science when science is being politicized. And for me,
is it science if it's political?
No. And that's
what is it? What does it become? What is it?
It becomes politics.
It becomes propaganda.
Yeah, and I just think that the reality is that the vaccine should have never been mandated. People should not have been losing their jobs because of it. And there's just something there. And I'm vaccinated, and so I'm not saying that as a person who was never vaccinated. I just think there's so many things that were upside down. You protect the vulnerable, you protect the person who has high risk, and you protect the person who's afraid. You don't force the person who's healthy and force the person has basically a 0% chance of having a serious effect of COVID. You don't force a person to get a vaccine. And you guys go, yeah, but they're
they
stupid.
did. What are you talking about? But they did.
They did.
They
right?
did.
No,
they did force. They forced me to get a vaccine. I had to get a vaccine because I live in Los Angeles and I couldn't go anywhere. Couldn't travel. Couldn't go into restaurants. Couldn't do anything.
Yes, I know.
So what do we do now? They made me do something with my body. The only way to get out of it was to lie, to forfeit, to forge.
Yeah.
To be unethical, right? So
yeah, and it's. I guess I'm more concerned with. The established pattern that now Americans are comfortable with.
Yeah.
That could actually come back and have a greater effect in the future.
Yeah.
And so I just think we need to be aware. I just think we need to keep our eyes open. Whenever you relinquish your freedom, you become more comfortable not being free.
Yeah.
And you just need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. What else we got? We've talked about Elon, we've talked Twitter, we've talked about Fauci, we talked about the pandemic being over. Yay, the pandemic is over. I feel safer, the world is better. And, and good to know. And that on this weekend, around April 26th, the pandemic came to a close.
You know what? I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe being around a bunch of people who listen to the government that easily, who gave up all their freedom that quickly. I feel like we live in the most unsafe America that we've ever lived in. We live in this society where now the government has realized there's a switch. We tell them something, they do it.
Yeah, but one other thing that's happened in our country out of this is that our nation has been forced to be pushed to extremes. We have extreme right and extreme left, and we don't have an intelligent middle. I said this way before the pandemic. I said this 40 years ago. Extremism is a form of stupidity. That when a person moves toward extreme liberalism or they move toward extreme fundamentalism, it's the lowest level of thinking, and it is not the result of intellectual debate, dialogue, or processing. It takes a lot more intelligence to live in the middle and to see the benefits, to see the attributes of each side's position and integrate them into a better solution.
I do think liberals need to be liberals should be very worried right now, because they did the best that they could for 2 years to control the United States, and it only worked for 2 years. Now they've lost their primary form of talking trash, Twitter. They're going to lose the election in the next election, which sucks, because it should be about the best candidate, not about the antithesis of the last candidate.
Yeah.
But there is no way that they're going to come up with a candidate that the U.S. trusts on a public forum. And you have people who now disregard science, because science is an important element in our political freedom,
that
in
may
our
be one
government.
of the worst things that's happened.
What do you mean trust the science? The science lied to us for 2 years, and then it became a political agenda. I'm very nervous for the left, because the left show that they can use all of their power, and it only lasted for 2 years, and now all of their fundamental institutions are being bought up by people. And I do think that when judges are ruling, hey, it doesn't make sense to wear masks on planes anymore, they're looking at data, they're looking at research, they're looking at what is actually going on. And thank God for the judiciary system, because that is one of the foundations that hopefully has not been prostituted out to political agendas. I do feel very nervous for the liberals, because, and I'm always nervous with conservatives, always nervous, because they got to work on themselves.
Yeah, what I'd say is that if you're a conservative and you have really good ideas, you got to kick the white supremacists off your bus.
Eradicate it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you invited them on the bus, but you let them on the bus, and you just figure, well, I have an empty seat.
Yeah,
they might as well sit there.
You need to check IDs. Yeah,
because I'm just telling you, not a single conservative idea can be trusted as long as you allow yourself to be identified with white supremacy.
Yeah, but now you have black supremacy, and you have white supremacy, and you have all of these racial divides in almost every element and every sector of our society now, and it's become, I think, more volatile than ever before. I've never claimed being Latin more than I ever have, in my entire life in the last 2 years. But I do think it says something about where we're at, right? And trust is a huge issue that I think we have with media. Do you think the media will survive this?
Well, I think media will once again be reinvented. Right. And I think that's what's happening, actually. Media is being reinvented. I think we used to have ABC, NBC, and CBS, and it was reinvented when cable came.
Right.
And cable was seen as non-credible news. And then cable became the news. And now podcasts and rogue sources of information are seen as not credible, but they are becoming the new source of news.
Right.
And the reality is that the way that media is communicating to society is always evolving. There was a time it was newspapers. You may not remember this, but I used to get the newspaper every day.
I love newspapers. The guy who had my house before me had the Wall Street Journal, and still gets delivered every Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for him.
I loved holding the newspaper, turning the pages, and I was sad when the newspapers disappeared, essentially. And because you could get your news so fast on television. And then when you have CNN went 24 hours a day, and Ted Turner really transformed a lot of the news cycles. And one, you can't be afraid in the evolution of information, and you can't act like the past form is the only credible form.
Right.
The future has credibility too, and you have to begin to realize that you can't stop progress from happening. And just like, Blockbuster was an innovation, and it changed the way we watch television and film, and now it's gone.
It's crazy.
And Netflix was a massive innovation, and it changed the way we watch television and film, and now it's disappearing.
Yeah.
And there's the part of me that's always a little sad when I lose something I've loved.
Right.
But there's also a part of me that's super excited because I keep going, what's coming? What's the innovation that's going to make the world better? And look, the way to, if you think Joe Rogan is wrong, the way to solve it is not to turn off his mic. See, that's socialism. That's an authoritarian dictatorship. The best way to solve it is put someone on a mic who's more intelligent, more thoughtful, and has better solutions.
Yeah.
Look, if your idea is that good, then trust your idea in the public forum.
So speaking of Twitter and liberals and this entire conversation, there was an episode a couple days ago in Michigan. So a Michigan congresswoman said a prayer to open up a legislative session where she basically prayed. She said, across the country, we're seeing in the news that our children are under attack, forces that desire things for them other than what their parents would have them see and hear and know. And 3 Democratic legislators walked out of the session. One of them has now become a little famous. Her name is Mallory Mcmorrow, because the legislator who prayed sent an email blast out saying that she was grooming and sexualizing children by basically supporting overthrowing the so-called Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. And then Mallory Mcmorrow went viral. Aaron, you were talking to us about this earlier, for her speech about how, even though she's straight and white, a suburban mom, she's a Christian, that learning about those things in school doesn't mean kids are going to be taught to feel bad or to hate themselves. And she wants every child in the state to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian. And she raised $250,000 in less than 24 hours from people who supported her statement. And that's, in a sense, just the power of Twitter.
All right, hold on.
So much information.
So if I support that bill, I can raise $250,000 in overnight?
If you support overthrowing it.
Look, guys, I've changed my opinion on how I feel about this bill. Hit me with the Cash App, Aaron C. McManus.
President Biden called her personally and thanked her for saying a lot of what needed to be said.
Okay, I'm just going to go on a limb here.
I'm joking, by the way. I don't have Cash App.
I'm going to go on a limb. You know how I just said that if conservatives are going to get their ideas, even if they're good, into the...
You got to kick racists off the bus. That's what you said.
Yeah, you got to kick white supremacists off the bus.
Right.
Liberalism has been hijacked with a dangerous view of children belong to the government and not to their families. And I don't know hardly any Democrat who thinks that teaching sexual identity and sexual orientation to a 5-year-old is healthy.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just talking to Joe Smith, his son Zai. I think Zai's 7 years old.
Yeah, he is.
And in school, they taught them about leprechauns on St. Patrick's Day. And he goes, I didn't even know they taught him about leprechauns.
Yeah.
And he came home and was really upset in the morning because he didn't have any money, because they were taught that if you capture the leprechaun, you can take his money away or whatever.
It's like a folklore myth.
Yeah. And because the leprechaun comes, I guess, and steals money from your house. And Zai was upset, Dad, you didn't capture the leprechaun. And Joe's like, what are you talking about? Which is kind of funny because, I mean, the Smiths, Joe is black and he's not Irish, but now it's like this Irish mythology that's coming into his family. And Zai's upset. He goes, my son's 7. He doesn't even know they're not leprechauns.
Right.
He gets taught in school they're leprechauns. He's upset with me that I didn't capture the leprechaun.
Yeah.
Do I want someone telling my son that no, he doesn't know whether he's a boy yet. No, your sexual identity is not established. It's a fluid. You might be a girl.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't want teachers telling my children that they don't know who they are. And my son doesn't even know there are no leprechauns.
Yeah.
How is he possibly going to be able to have a conversation about something so complex, about sexual orientation, sexual identity?
Is it complex though? Because it's like, I was talking to, two of our friends who they were teaching their daughter like what her body parts are.
Right.
And at like 1.5 years old. And I was like, is that a thing? And they're like, it actually helps them understand that if they were ever to be touched in an inappropriate place, they know which body parts they were touched in. Like self-awareness and being safe and this whole thing. And I was like, so that's interesting, right? Because you're teaching a 1.5-year-old what body part they have. It's pretty simple. Like you have the body part, you are a certain thing. You have another body part, you're a different thing. And it's actually very biologically simple that we've made it very complicated with identity, whether it's identity issues, whether it's a massive mental health issue, whether it's a sexuality issue. I'm not entirely sure which one of them it is, and I don't want to belittle it, but it's a serious issue, but I don't think it's as complex as people are trying to make it.
Yes.
I think it's very simple. You don't teach sex to children. You teach sex to pubescent teenagers when they're dealing with sexual, what is it, like the sexual puberty, like their body parts are turning on for the first time. No, I was in 6th grade. In 6th grade, man. I didn't want to talk about those things, but I'm glad that I did. But I think any earlier would have been traumatizing, and I wouldn't have been capable of understanding like the full complexity of the situation.
Yeah, I just want to say there's a fine line, and it is a dangerous line, between being sensitive to a child who maybe actually genuinely has like identity struggles,
right,
and grooming children to become sexually fluid and ambivalent about their biology.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. I mean, I think it's so odd when I hear language like, your doctor guesses that you're a boy or a girl. Doctors aren't guessing whether you're a boy or girl.
Where did you hear that?
I actually watched this conversation somewhere in social media where that was the line that a teacher used. And I'm like, wait a minute. Because I guess there was this TikTok space where all they did was post what teachers were saying about what they did in school. And they were not editing it or distorting it. And you had so many teachers going, I love talking to the children about my sexuality. I love talking to them about the fact that you don't know whether you're a boy or a girl. And this whole space in TikTok has been really controversial. I don't go on TikTok, so I'm not familiar with it. But that all they were doing is posting in one place what all these people were posting themselves. And I'm going, look, my children were my responsibility to raise. They're not the government's responsibility to raise.
Right.
It is a communist mentality that your children belong to the society and to the government. A part of what has made our nation actually healthy and strong is this idea, I know it's an antiquated idea, of a nuclear family, and that mom and dads raise their kids and they teach them values and ethics. And
okay, so you're dancing around the heart. You're dancing around it.
No, I'm not dancing around it.
I think so a little bit. That's okay.
No, what I'm saying is that this is a part of why even really strong liberal ideas are now being seen with suspicion, and they're not going to have an impact, because anyone should know that a school should not be telling a 4-year-old what their sexual orientation or what their sexual identity is. You should not be talking to a 4 or 5, 6-year-olds about sex in school, period.
Right.
And the moment that becomes the agenda, it hijacks actually more important policies and principles.
Yeah, so I have a friend who's they were talking to me this last weekend or 2 weekends ago. They're doing a fundraiser at this community that I'm a part of, and they're like, it's a fundraiser to fight the Don't Say Gay bill. But
that's not what the bill is. That's just the marketing to go against the bill.
I said, I said, okay, hey, I'm up for anything for you guys to do that. It's none of my business what happens and what doesn't happen. But they were all just like, yeah, of course we'll do it. And I'm like, interesting. Did you read the bill? They're like, no. Like, did you should just hit what is it, like Apple F and see if it says don't say gay anywhere in the bill before you put on an event that says don't say gay. But the reality is that like it isn't even about being gay anymore. It's about the fact that if you can brand something good enough, you can destroy or shoot down or build up almost anything in the world. And Ryan Holiday knows that more than anyone, right? Like
he's made Stoicism popular.
Stoicism popular, but his marketing book is about what is it? I'm lying. It is Trust Me, I'm Lying, a playbook for the dark arts of exploiting the media. And it's like we're watching that in real time across our entire nation of how to exploit the media, how to create agenda, how to propagate, and you know what? And how to alienate people even more. Because I think if they put as much money as they raised for that congresswoman into like having healthy debate and discourse around these topics and why these things are important, I think there would be there would be such a better outcome. People would learn. But really it's about this continuance of marketing and branding and destroying something that could like completely destroy our society one way or the other.
Yeah, I just think we're toying with the mental health of an entire generation of children.
Yeah.
And we need to be careful.
You need to be careful. That's not how I wanted to end, but anything light we want to hit? Do you not like that topic?
I think it's an important topic.
I think so too. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah.
Tess?
I think it's really important. I love what you said,
Yeah.
Pastor Erwin. I have a question.
Yeah.
Why does a minority subject, like, Pastor Erwin, you said there's a fine line to being sensitive to a child with identity struggles and grooming children overall. So this is a very small demographic of people who are even impacted by this internal struggle. Why, for it to be valuable or seen as valued, does a minority conversation have to be brought to the majority?
This would probably be less than 1%, right? Less than 3% for
Yes.
sure of the mass population.
Yeah.
Struggling with this idea.
Yeah.
And yet we're essentially risking the indoctrination of tens of millions of children because of something that's so specific. I'm not saying it's not valuable. It's valuable, but it's specific. It's under 1%, under 2% of children are dealing with this situation. But now we're making this on the 100%. How is the one? Is the ironic is that there was such a backlash with the Wall Street movement that 1% controls 35% of the national wealth. But how is it that under 1% controls the majority of the conversation of sexual identity in America?
And that's exactly what's happened. Is
that's
that
good.
less than 1% of people are controlling the entire cultural, social conversation in our country. And if you have any position that conflicts with that 1% view, you're seen as evil or insensitive or just an endless number of different words that would describe us.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like, I think that we need to protect our children above our agendas.
Yeah.
See, I actually think that whether you think that children naturally grow up to be gay or environmentally grow up to be gay, and what I think, if you're a parent, you need to realize that those developmental years of 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, those are not the years to be talking about sexual identity. Those are the years to be talking about kindness and compassion and cooperation and learning and math and reading and look, if you want to deal with the issues of, hey, we want to make sure no one is mistreated, then teach children compassion. Teach them not to bully. Teach them to be accepting and loving. If that's really the agenda. And if the agenda is to create a new society where sexual identity is no longer a binary reality, there are no male and female, no boys and girls, that's a different agenda. See, I am for protecting children and creating environments where no one is bullied and everyone is loved and everyone is nurtured. I am not for creating a social agenda that eliminates the biological identity of male and female, boys and girls, men and women. And the exception is not the rule. And just because you acknowledge the rule, it doesn't mean that you need to mistreat the exception. Does that make sense, Brooke?
Yes.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for joining me on the Battle Ready podcast and me joining you. I love doing this together. This is one of the most special things that I look forward to each and every week. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's good to be here. I know we dealt with some really heavy, intense issues today.
Yeah.
But I think we owe it to our listeners to dive into these conversations and to address them the best we can.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Battle Ready podcast. We love you so much. We're so grateful for you. Whether you agree with us or whether you disagree with us, thanks for listening. Check out the Instagram Battle Ready podcast and check us out on TikTok. We are also hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. We film this and we post this. Also, rate and review this on Apple, and you can review this and rate it on Spotify as well. So thank you guys so much. And next time I want to talk about me checking out that podcast last week that kind of turned around my mindset, and maybe we can go into that stuff.
Oh, that'd be fun.
All right. See you guys next week.